Man, that first T20, Pakistan and New Zealand, down in Christchurch, it really got people talking. Getting bowled out for 91, that's
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that really makes you wonder what happened,
Oh,
like
yeah.
what went wrong. And a lot of our listeners send in this transcript from a YouTube video by Mohammed Furqan, and he really digs into this match.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to go beyond the scorecard and try to understand the context of this loss.
Absolutely. And when you see a result like that, I mean, that's stark. You just know there's more to the story.
Right.
In this particular situation, as the transcript highlights, I think there are just so many layers to unpack here. You've got the travel, you've got the reactions, and then those bigger questions about what this means moving forward for Pakistan.
Yeah, and speaking of travel, I mean, just getting to Christchurch, that was a journey.
Oh, for sure.
Lahore to Dubai, and then a 16-hour flight to Auckland, and then another hour-and-a-half flight down to Christchurch.
Goodness.
And then after all that, they only had like a day and a half to practice.
Yeah.
Before facing New Zealand in their home ground on what sounds like a really bouncy, lively wicket.
Mm.
I mean, how much do you think that travel impacted their performance, or like just getting there?
I mean, it's a huge point, right? We always focus on the on-field performance, what we see during the match. But that physical and mental toll of travel, especially when you don't have a lot of time to adjust, it can't be ignored. Like in sports science, we know that jet lag, just not being acclimated, it really impacts your reaction time, your focus. It impacts your athletic performance, period. And you've got this young team, they're trying to find their groove, and then you throw in this crazy travel schedule right before a really tough match. That's a recipe for, well, it's not a recipe for success, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. And, the transcript also talks about the reaction back home. And wow, it was intense. Like we're talking hundreds of thousands lakhs of messages online.
It's incredible.
And a lot of it was pretty negative.
Yeah.
Even abusive,
Mhm.
directed at these young players after that batting collapse. It really makes you think about the kind of pressure these athletes are under.
No, absolutely. And what gets me is the sheer volume, the intensity of the reaction. Cricket in Pakistan, it's not just a sport, it's part of the culture. And while that passion from the fans, that's usually a good thing, it can turn very quickly.
For sure.
And you've got these young players, they're still developing, still learning, and then they face this wave of negativity. It's personal, and it's right after a setback.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough on their confidence. It's got to be tough for them to focus on getting better.
And, that kind of leads into this other point that the transcript brings up, which is uh, the calls to bring back some of the more experienced players.
Right, the veterans.
Yeah, exactly. So names like Mohammed Rizwan are being thrown around. People are pointing to the fact that last year in Christchurch, he scored 38 off 38 balls.
Right, right.
And people are even talking about Babar Azam, talking about his strike rate in T20s, the fact that he hasn't won a Man of the Match award in the last 4 major tournaments.
Yeah.
It seems like there's this knee-jerk reaction to want to go back to what's familiar, go back to the players who have proven themselves in the past.
It's understandable in a way, right? When things go wrong, you want to feel that sense of security.
Yeah.
But I think this raises a really interesting question about building a team. How do you balance that need for experience, that steadiness, with the need to develop new talent?
Right.
It's tempting to look backwards, but if you're always looking backwards, you might miss out on the future. You have to give young players a chance. They need the opportunity to learn, to play at the international level, even if that means they're going to stumble a bit along the way.
And that kind of brings up an interesting contrast because the YouTuber talks about how other countries approach this. Like he mentions Australia and how they really back their young players in that Border Gavaskar trophy. And then India's got Abhishek Sharma. He's encouraged to be aggressive, to play his natural game right from the start. It does make you wonder if there's a bit of a cultural difference in how young talent is viewed and how it's supported.
There definitely is, different cricketing cultures. They have different philosophies, different ideas about how you develop players, how much risk you're willing to take.
Yeah.
What one country might see as, investing in the future, except in that there'll be bumps in the road. Another country might see as unacceptable. Like, we need results now. And so you get those calls to bring back the veterans. But understanding those differences, those different perspectives, I think it helps us make sense of the reactions we're seeing here.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, there was this label that some fans were throwing around about the Pakistani batsmen, that they played brainless cricket.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
But then the YouTuber makes a really interesting point. He says, look, even the New Zealand openers, they struggled initially. Tom Seifert, he was trying to go after the bowling right from ball one. and it wasn't easy.
Right, right.
So it wasn't just bad batting from Pakistan. The conditions themselves, that pitch, it was a big factor.
That is such a crucial point. When a team loses, we tend to focus on their mistakes.
Yeah.
What did they do wrong?
Yeah.
But if you want to be fair, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to consider the conditions, how both teams adapted or didn't adapt to those conditions. And in this case, the fact that Seifert, a very aggressive opener, struggled early on. It tells you that the Christchurch pitch, it was tricky, it was difficult for everyone.
Absolutely. And, the YouTuber is very critical of the Pakistan Cricket Board, the PCB. Like, he doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
He talks about that crazy travel schedule, no tour match to get them ready for those bouncy conditions. And he says all of this really impacted the young players, impacted their confidence, their ability to perform.
And that brings up a bigger point, right?
Yeah.
The role of these administrative bodies. People don't always think about it, but it's so important. They need to support their teams.
For
Preparation is key, right? That means getting enough rest, adjusting to different time zones, different climates. And, this is crucial, it means getting opportunities to practice and play in conditions that are similar to what they're going to face in a match. And in this case, not having a tour game before such a tough match, that seems like a missed opportunity. It could have really helped these young players get acclimated.
Yeah, exactly. And what's kind of disheartening, at least from what the transcript is saying, is the message this sends to the young Pakistani players.
Yeah,
Like, hey, you might not always have the support of your own fans.
it's tough.
And there seems to be this preference for a more cautious approach, run a ball cricket. So that's going to be a tough environment for young players who are trying to develop their own style, who are trying to take risks.
It is. Think about it. Imagine being a young athlete. The stakes are high, and you're aware that if you try something different, if you try to be aggressive, and you fail, your own fans might turn on you. I mean, that can create a real fear of failure, and that fear can make you play more conservatively. It can hold you back from taking the very risks that you need to succeed in T20 cricket. So it's this really tricky balance. You have to encourage young players to express themselves,
Right.
but you also have to manage the expectations of the fans, who can be incredibly passionate, but, sometimes pretty unforgiving.
And then there's this really interesting analogy that the YouTuber uses.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
He compares the social media critics to zombies.
Zombies.
Zombies controlled by a virus.
Mm.
And he even suggests that this virus could be like PR campaigns, even financial incentives.
Wow.
He mentions that people might be getting paid like 1,000 to 1,500 rupees to spread negative stuff online.
Mm.
I mean, it's a pretty provocative idea.
It is. It really makes you think about the power of negativity online, how quickly it can spread, how it can almost take on a life of its own. And it makes you wonder about the motives, right?
Totally.
Is this just people expressing their opinions, or is there something more organized going on? I don't know. But either way, when you have that much negativity, it can be really hard for balanced, reasonable voices to be heard. It shows you how social media can shape the conversation around something like cricket. It can be incredibly influential and not always in a good way.
And it's not just directed at the players. The YouTuber himself, he became a target.
Oh, no.
Even though he was fasting for Ramadan, he got abusive messages, even threats, just for sharing his analysis. I mean, that's just wrong.
It is. It's just plain wrong. And it shows you how toxic things can get online. People feel like they can say anything, do anything, and there are no consequences. But there should be consequences. We need to have respectful conversations, even when we're talking about something as emotionally charged as cricket.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about what happened on the field. And specifically, let's look at the guidance from the Pakistani dugout. Because the YouTuber raises this really interesting point about the lack of strategy from the coaching staff, especially the batting coach, Mohammad Yusuf.
Interesting.
Like, why wasn't there a message to the batsmen to just try and play out the 20 overs? To aim for a modest total, maybe 100, 120 runs?
Yeah.
Especially considering how difficult that pitch was. Even the lower order guys, Shaheen Afridi, Jahandad Khan, they struggled. And even the New Zealand commentators were talking about the awkward bounce.
It's a good point. One of the most important things a coach can do is assess the conditions, figure out a game plan, and communicate that plan to the players. And if it's clear that the pitch is tough, that it's not easy to score runs, then the strategy might have to change. Maybe you focus on building partnerships, on staying in the crease, on just surviving.
Yeah.
Just grind out a defendable total. And the fact that even the lower order batsmen were having trouble, that tells you something. It tells you that everyone should have been more cautious.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they watched an hour of cricket and saw that hitting out freely wasn't working because of that bounce.
Yeah.
So why didn't they change their approach? Why wasn't there a plan B?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It
Yeah.
makes you wonder, were they not adaptable enough?
Right.
Or was the communication from the coaches not clear enough?
Hmm.
In cricket, you have to be able to read the game. You have to adjust your strategy. And when your initial plan isn't working, you need to have a backup plan. And everyone needs to be on the same page.
And there's even a suggestion that the bowling strategy might have been off as well.
Really?
Yeah, the transcript mentions this example where Salman Ali Agha told Muhammad Ali to bowl between the wickets to Seifert,
Uh-huh.
even though Ali had been bowling really well, pitching it outside off stump,
Yeah.
and, well, Seifert hit a boundary. It just shows you how even small changes in tactics can have a big impact on the game.
Oh, absolutely. Cricket is a game of inches. Every decision matters, every little detail. When you're making bowling changes, setting the field, you have to be very strategic.
For sure.
If a bowler is doing well, if he's found a rhythm, you don't change things up unless you have a really good reason.
Yeah.
You have to think about the batsman, what he likes, what he doesn't like. You have to think about the situation of the game. It's all connected.
It is. But amidst all the criticism, there's this nice message of support for Muhammad Harris, even though he got out for a duck.
That's good to hear.
The point being made is that his aggressive style, that's his game. And they should stick with it. They should encourage it.
I like that. It's important to remember that in T20 cricket, especially for the top order batsmen, aggression is valuable.
Yeah.
You want players who can score quickly, who can put pressure on the other team. And sure, sometimes it's not going to work out. They're going to get out early.
Right.
But you can't punish them for that. You have to support them, especially the young players. They need to know that it's okay to take risks.
And then the YouTuber really gets into it with the fans who are quick to criticize the young players, the ones who seem to prefer a more conservative style of cricket. He compares that to the way people admire aggressive openers in test matches, like the Australians.
I see.
And it's like, there's a double standard. It's okay to be aggressive in test matches, but not in T20s. It doesn't make sense.
It is strange. It shows you how complicated fan expectations can be. People want to see runs. They want to see excitement.
Yeah.
But then they get upset when batsmen get out trying to score quickly. And this comparison to other formats, other teams, tells you that we need to be more understanding.
For sure.
We need to support different playing styles, especially when we're talking about young players in the shorter formats of the game.
And the YouTuber also talks about the need for patience. And he makes this really interesting analogy. He compares building a successful cricket team to the time it takes for a government to implement its policies and see the results.
Ooh, I like that.
You know, he's saying that you can't expect overnight success.
It's true. It takes time to build something lasting. It takes investment. It takes planning. And most importantly, it takes patience.
Yeah.
You can't just change things up every time there's a setback. You have to stick with the plan.
And on that note, the transcript also mentions some advice given to Salman Ali Agha about team selection.
Oh, right.
They're saying that he should give the young batsmen, like Harris and Hassan Nawaz, a consistent run in the team. Like, let them play at least the first 3 matches. Let them build some confidence, some momentum. Don't keep changing the batting order. And there's another player, Umair bin Yusuf, who's also waiting for his chance.
That's so important, especially for young players. Consistency is key. They need to know that they have the backing of the team management. They need to know what their role is. If you keep shuffling them around, it creates uncertainty, and that can really hurt their development. Let them play. Let them make mistakes. Let them learn. That's how they're going to get better.
And the YouTuber is pretty clear about his thoughts on bringing back older players. He says they might be better suited for flat wickets and that they haven't always performed well in the big ICC tournaments.
He's not holding back, is he?
No, he's not.
But I understand his point. It's about looking forward. It's about building a team that can compete at the highest level. And if you keep relying on players who haven't delivered consistently in those big moments, you're not really moving forward.
Right, you're stuck in the past.
Exactly. You have to give the new generation a chance. They might be the ones who can step up and win those trophies.
Well, despite that disappointing first match, there's some optimism for the next T20. It's supposed to be played on a better batting wicket, so hopefully it'll be a more even contest.
Yeah, a change of venue can make a big difference. Maybe the Pakistani batsmen will feel more comfortable, more confident.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see how they respond after that first game.
And the transcript ends with this really powerful message to the fans. Yeah, he's asking them to support the young players, to learn from the past, to be patient. It's a hopeful message, even though there's a lot of frustration out there.
I get it. It's easy to get caught up in the emotion of the moment, especially when your team isn't doing well.
Yeah,
But building a successful team, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. And everyone needs to be on board. The players, the coaches, the board, and the fans. We all have a role to play.
and this deep dive into that YouTube transcript, it really gives you a much deeper understanding of what happened in that first T20. It's about so much more than the scorecard.
It is. It's about the challenges of travel, the intense pressure from the fans, the questions about strategy and coaching, and it's about the big debate over how you support young talent, how you balance that with the experience of older players. It's fascinating.
It really is. And
Mhm.
it leaves us with a really important question to think about. In any field, whether it's sports, the arts, whatever, how do we balance high expectations with the support that people need to grow and improve? How do those external pressures affect performance?
Right.
When is criticism helpful?
Mhm.
And when does it become harmful? It's something we all need to consider no matter what we're passionate about.